Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today we've been banished from Earth and find ourselves on Pluto. Now off in the distance, we found a yellow dwarf star, an intriguing group of planets, and a radioactive element called Vertium. Our physicists think it can heat up our colonies and upgrade our weapons and armor. Today, we're taking a look at Vertium, which is a quick and tactical game of colonization for 2 to 4 players and published by Caper Games. It's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and then I'll see you on the other side. This is a Kickstarter preview, so all the components and art you see here are prototype, and you're going to want to check the Kickstarter link in the description of this video to see all the final art and components. Vertium is played in 2 different phases. The first phase, you'll be trying to colonize these different planets, and in the second phase, you'll be battling over these planets. Now there'll be a different amount of planets depending on the amount of players playing. We have this set up for a 3-player game, so we have 7 planets, and each of those planets will randomly get a face-down orange moon. 3 of them will get face-down blue moons. Now these green resources are Vertium. They're a key resource in the game, and in fact before you start you're going to flip face up all the different orange moons, and this shows you how much of this Vertium each of those planets are going to get once they're colonized. And this is going to help you hugely in the next phase that I'll show you later. Now each player is going to get a player board of their color. They're going to get a certain amount of captains of their color depending on the amount of players. They're also going to get some dice that are specific in their color, and they will be customized dice. They won't just be pips like this. Again, check that Kickstarter page to see the final components. We're also going to get 4 colonization tokens of each of the different colors, and they're each going to get 6 cards. Now these cards will be secret to others. You'd be holding these in your hand, and they represent different things like energy and metal, or water, and so on and so forth. And these are going to help you collect sets in order to colonize different planets. Everyone will also get a secret objective at the beginning of the game, and there will be 1 secret objective for each planet in the game, as this can change with the number of players. You'll want to try to control the planet on your secret objective card at the end of the first phase, and we'll go over this in more detail later. On your turn, you're going to draw one of the 2 cards that are face up next to the deck. Now, if between that card and the cards that you have in your hand, you have a set of 3 of the same type, you'll discard them and you'll be able to place a colonization token of that type. For example, that was red energy, so we'll take the red colonization token. And you can place that colonization token on any of the planets that doesn't already have one of that type. So in this case, they're going to choose this one here. And then that card would get replaced and it would be the next player's turn. Now, if you have less than 4 cards at the end of your turn, you'll simply fill back up so you have at least 4. Now after some turns, the board might look something like this. Now when a player gets to place a colonization token on a planet, and it is the 4th color that's there, then that planet will be colonized by that player. And when that happens, that player gets to place their captain, which is one of their colored meeples, on that planet, and they would add however many Vertium of the number that's there. So in this case, this planet would get 5 Vertium, because it has a 5 right there. Now you take the largest star there and you'd line up with the blue dot of that orange moon. Now at the beginning of this player's turn, before they draw a card, this is going to move to the next spot. So next turn it will move there, next turn it will move there. Once it comes all the way around to here, it would add another Vertium. Now if the planet is the number 2 or 3, it actually moves 2 times each turn. So it would only take 1, 2, 3, 4 turns to come there. Because they're worth less points, they actually create more Vertium faster than the other planets do. Now at the end of your turn, after you've drawn a card, if you don't have a set, if you have a disaster card, you can play it. These cards are going to do something different. This one, for example, the Meltdown, allows you to choose a player, and that player has to remove all of the red energy cards from their hand. The Mind Blast allows you to skip the next 2 players in turn order, or if it's a 2-player game, you skip that player twice. The Leak allows you to remove this color, blue, of the colonization tokens from the board. So you can take any single one of these blues that's not already, colonized off of the board and back into the supply. The Virus allows you to take all green colonization tokens that are out there and put them back in the supply. The Raider gives you 2 choices. You can either randomly steal a card from another player, and if that gives you a set, you can now play it, or you can steal 1 Vertium from a faction that has more Vertium than you. So if it was the red player playing it, they take any one of their planets, compare it to another planet of another person, and they can take it and just move it over to their planet. These turns continue in this colonization phase until all of the planets have been colonized. Then each of the blue moons are going to flip over and something's going to happen to each of the planets that it's next to. If the normal moon is next to you, you'd get 1 additional Vertium. If the winter eclipse moon is next to your planet, you actually lose half of the colony's Vertium rounded down. And if you have the refuge moon, this will help you out in phase 2 that we'll show you later. At this point, everyone would flip over their secret objectives, and if you are on that planet at this point, you'd add 3 more Vertium to that planet, which as you'll see will help you out in phase 2. Then you'd go into phase 2, which is battling, and you'd see who goes first by whoever has the most colonized planets plus Vertium. The total, whoever has the most will go first. In this case, it's the black player, so they get to attack first. So they'll take one of their captains and basically go to another planet to try to fight it. But when they go, they're going to take a certain amount of Vertium. They have to leave at least 1. So let's say they want to go over here and they want to attack this planet right here. Now they have to leave 1 because 1 Vertium will always be exchanged for the leaving captain of another captain of that type. So that just shows you who owns that planet. Then both players would roll their 3 dice. This is the dice for the black player right now. This is the dice for the red player with the red pips there. Now these dice, again, this is prototype. They will actually have different symbols on them. Essentially, a 3 and a 4 will have a shield. A 1 and a 6 will have a pink photon blast. And a 2 or a 5 will have a yellow atomic beam. So first we start with the attacker. So we're going to start with the Photon Blast. It's this, and this player does not have a shield, which would have been a 3 or a 4. It's going to look like a shield in the final thing, so they would actually lose 1 of their Vertium. Then we go to the defender, look at their dice, and let them do something first. Now they have 2 2s, which are both going to be photon beams, and you need 2 of those to try to get a hit. So these 2 are going to get spent. However, this player has a 3, which will be a shield in the final components, so that essentially blocks those, and what we're left with is a 5 and a 5. And since the 5 is a single photon beam and you need 2 of those to make a hit, these 2 do nothing. So this is where we're at right now. Now during the battle, if this player got hit again and they would lose a Vertium, if they had got hit again, they would lose their captain. This player would take over this specific planet and they would get 1 Vertium for doing so. And then since they were the attacking player and won this planet, they could decide to then attack another planet or pass. If they pass, it goes to the next strongest player, and then after that player, it will go to the 3rd player that hasn't yet played. However, if the defending player was the one to win the battle, they would take over that planet, they'd get an additional Vertium, and they would immediately then get to attack if they like to or pass. Now I just showed you the basics of combat using only the dice, but there are skirmish cards that also can be used during an attack to help influence the dice rolls. Each player gets 3 skirmish cards, 1 photon blast, 1 atomic beam, and 1 shield, essentially the different sides of the dice. After both players have rolled their dice, the attacking player decides first if they want to use a skirmish card. After that, the defending player has the option to use one of their skirmish cards. Each of these 3 skirmish cards can change the roll of 1 die to what is shown on that card, but only once per roll and manipulating only 1 die. Once a card is played, it cannot be used again during that attack. However, after this fight for that planet is decided, the players get their skirmish cards to use in a future attack. Now if you're on a planet next to the refuge moon and you're down with no Vertium left, just your captain, right before the last dice roll you can decide to leave and go to the refuge planet. The attacker would then win this planet and they would get 1 more Vertium. And then this player would continue attacking or pass. And then later on, when this player is the active player or the attacker, they can decide to take this captain and try to fight this planet and get it back, or go to another planet and attack that does not have one of their captains already on it. This continues until any one faction has won all the planets like this, and that player would win. Or it can end if rival factions, let's say we were the yellow team, rival factions have no Vertium left, which means they cannot leave and attack, and in this place, whoever has the most planets would win, in this case, still yellow. And if it happens to be tied, then you would essentially add up all of the numbers of the planets that you control, and whoever has the highest numbers wins. Now there are a couple of expansions to the game, but the first one, when someone colonizes a planet, when they place their captain there, if the number of that planet is between 4 and 7, they would still get the normal Vertium like normal. However, if someone colonizes a planet that has a number of 2 or 3, when they put their captain on it, they're going to get a new resource. So they're going to get different ones, yellow crystals now called gel bond. Now at the end of the first phase, if you have a planet that has both Vertium and gel bond on it, you can give 1 gel bond back to the supply from one planet and 1 Vertium back to the supply from any other planet, and then one of those 2 planets will get a cube of your color. Now these cubes are going to be used for defense. They'll never move from that planet, but we'll show you how this works in just a moment. Now when a player comes over to try to attack a planet that has a cube of another captain. The Vertium acts just like the gel bond here for defense, but when this player tries to take this over, they have to defeat the cube first, and the cube has a defense of 3. Now, if after a full battle this cube is not defeated, it regenerates back up to 3. They're very powerful. However, if they are able to defeat it, it comes off like this. Also, during your turn, you can always do a trade to be able to, trade a gel bond from one planet and a Vertium from a different planet to put a cube, but they can only be 1 cube per planet. The other expansion is the Shadows of the Complex. Now, the Complex are these huge blue meeples, and you replace one of the factions in the game with this faction. Now, this faction is going to get 4 dice instead of 3, and this faction is trying to take over all of the planets in the galaxy. Now this is a 1 versus many because one player that's playing the complex is trying to get on all the planets and win the game, where all the other players are working together against them and trying to get at least 1 planet by the end of the game to win. Well, there you have Vertium, and as I've shown in the overview, it's a colonization game that can be played in under an hour, and the game's 2 different phases, colonization and battling, gives it a unique arc to the game. Now, if you'd like to see the final art and components and all the different pledge levels and stretch goals and such, you can click on the link below me right in the description of this video, and that will bring you directly to the Kickstarter page, where I'm sure the people at Caper Games would love your support.